Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs of Valor. Purpose of the video is to talk about the current state of affairs with the Federal Department of Justice and really contemplate some alternative moving forward. Let's go ahead and get started. Folks, if you've paid attention to the news lately, you would have known that the president's son, Hunter Biden, has been in some serious trouble, or at least potential serious trouble. He's been under investigation for the last 4 years. That's right, 4 years. He's been involved in investigations with money laundering, tax evasion, lying on a gun purchase form, foreign influence, a whole host of issues that has been popularized in certain movies, and it's been in the news, in and out of the news. You know, he's certainly a drug addict. He's a deadbeat father. He's just an overall just atrocious human being. If you've looked into any of his life, how he's conducted himself. Now, the problem here is that we're dealing with the Department of Justice, and under the leadership of Merrick Garland, who is a lifetime Washington, D.C. political hack for the Democrat Party. If you're looking at him, it starts from the top. Purpose of this video really is to generate a decent discussion about what to do about the Department of Justice. You know, if I was president of the United States right now, the first thing I would do is disband it. It serves no purpose whatsoever other than to be used by the political party in charge to persecute political opponents who disagree with them. This is certainly the case under the Biden administration. You know, it seems like every single day the Department of Justice is used to punish people who do not accept the Democrat narrative from Washington, D.C. 4 years to investigate Hunter Biden, 4 years. And all of a sudden they say they have sufficient charges, yet we have yet to see an indictment. He has not been charged officially with anything yet, despite mountains of evidence over the years emerging, despite the fact that he has tried to settle out of court. He's paid over $1 million to the IRS to try to get this thing to go away, but he owes a lot more. He's got a lot of problems, guys. My point is, what to do about the Department of Justice. We've seen what they've been unleashed on people that disagree with whatever administration's in power. Certainly the last couple of years, we've seen what they do. They send the FBI out to get people. They send overwhelming force with SWAT teams, with agents raiding people. They misuse their power. They charge people and then use government lawyers on government funds to bankrupt them into a bullcrap settlement. So my thing is about the Department of Justice. This is the behavior that we've seen throughout history in totalitarian regimes. This is behavior that we've seen in history from countries that we warn people about. If you ever see this kind of stuff happening, then you know that things are coming apart at the seams. Well, I believe right now under this administration, and I believe the Department of Justice under the leadership of Merrick Garland, I believe that this Department of Justice, specifically the FBI, specifically federal attorneys, I believe that this Department of Justice is unhinged. I think they are borderline, they are criminal. There's no borderline about it. It's absolutely criminal. If you ever read 1984, if you read Orwell's 1984, you'll know that the entities in charge, for example, the Ministry of Truth, whatever the name of that entity was, they in fact did the opposite. So in 1984, the Ministry of Truth used to lie and have propaganda, and they would cut history books apart and they would change it. They would change history, or if they put out a news story that day, it was whatever they want, whatever the party's narrative, and that was in the book. It was called The Party. You'll notice that the Ministry of Truth did exactly what the party told them to do and report on. The Department of Love, or the Ministry of Love in 1984. Instead of showing kindness and compassion to people, it was in fact a place where people went to get tortured. So if you go to the website of the Department of Justice, the mission statement is to uphold the rule of law, to defend the country, and to protect civil liberties. That's their mission statement. But what in practice do they actually do? They don't uphold the rule of law. We saw that with Hillary Clinton. Even though they admitted she performed a crime, they let her, multiple crimes, they let her walk. The director of the FBI on live TV admitted that she committed the crime that she was charged with, but that she would not be charged because there was no intent there. If anybody, and they said that's not to say anybody in a similar situation wouldn't face charges. So now, instead of upholding the rule of law, what they do is they uphold the rule of law only for their political opponents. And people that they want to protect, they're going to protect. Defend the country? Are you kidding me? Defend the country from what? They defend themselves. They defend their political cronies. They defend the people on whatever they think the right side of the narrative is. And if your last name is a certain last name, then you get preferential treatment. So here we are in this country in 2022 in the United States of America. We're at the point right now where when somebody who's allied with that Department of Justice or whose family is special, whenever they get charged, the saying is, oh, nothing's going to happen to them. Oh, they won't prosecute them. Oh, if they do, they'll walk. We're at that point right now where literally anybody that's a legit criminal, their outcome of being convicted is dubious at best. That's where we are. Can anyone here watching this video tell me one institution in this country that is trustworthy? One institution that does what it's supposed to do according to the Constitution? One entity in this country does its mission statement and has the confidence of the American people? Which federal agency out there actually makes your life better, protects your civil liberties? Which government agency out there right now do you believe will do the right thing? For me, that answer is none, because they're corrupt to the core, and it starts at the top and spews its filth down to everybody else. It is a venal, oppressive entity that must be disbanded. Now, I've done countless videos where I've spoken exactly this forcefully and this passionately about a subject, and people say, watch out, Reid, don't say because you'll end up on a list. Are you afraid of being on? What does that tell you? If that's the point of focus is having people tell me to watch out what I say or I'm going to get in trouble. What does that tell you about the state of this country right now? Where me having a right to free speech, to criticize the government, to question what's going on, and then people tell me to watch out or they're going to come for me. Well, I can tell you, first of all, I am not afraid of them whatsoever. They should be afraid of people like us. Because the problem that we have now is that when the government fears the people, there's liberty. When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. So you tell me what state the United States of America is right now. You know, our ancestors left England and Europe and many other countries from around the world and came to the United States to get away from such practices. You know, it used to be several hundred years ago in Britain, if you had a certain last name, if you were from nobility, or if you had some high-rolling job, then yeah, you could be protected against certain charges if you just paid the right person. Well, guess what? That's the same kind of crap that's happening right now. Then, of course, the last part of the Department of Justice mission statement is to protect civil liberties. Now, this one I've got a serious problem with because they don't protect civil liberties. In fact, they are the greatest violators of civil liberties in this country. Now, I think that we've got to question whether or not the Department of Justice should continue. And I think that we have to question what to do about it. At the very least, they need to have strict limitations of their power. And if it was up to me, I would get rid of the whole thing. Starting at the FBI, starting with the U.S. Attorney General, and get rid of those offices. They do not need to be in existence. The potential for abuse is too great, and not just the potential, the actual practice of abuse has been proven time and time again. We saw this time and time again when Hillary Clinton was being investigated, when her husband Bill just so happened to meet with the Attorney General of the United States, Loretta Lynch, on a plane. They just happened to be at the same place at the same time to discuss how the kids were doing. Does anybody buy that narrative? Does anybody believe that for 1 second? And here, on the same vein, literally just this week, a man who went to a pro-life demonstration where one of these rabid pro-choice people wanted to attack his kid, he literally pushed him away from attacking his kid, and then less than a year later gets 15 FBI agents raiding his house with violence, with firearms. No. This is the disproportionate application of quote-unquote justice that we're dealing with at this point in time. And I've got a question for people watching this video. If you know from history books that violent regimes will send men out to persecute their political opponents and incarcerate them and bankrupt them, and you know that that's happened in history, and then you know it's happening right now in the United States, what will you do when that knock comes on your door? Will you go off into that gulag? Will you go off into that train car? Or are you going to do something else? I know what my choice is. This is Reid Henrichs of Valor reminding you the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.